Okay. Welcome to our weekly Pnimis HaTorah podcast. Um, Parshas Balak, I believe. I'm upstate, so a little bit in like a different world. And tonight is a Yartzeit of HaChaim HaKadosh. We're going to dedicate some time to HaChaim HaKadosh. And Torah from him, maybe a little bit about his life and his influence on the Olam, the Olam HaPnimis that we know through Olam HaChasidus mostly, and obviously through Arizal and the Zayar Sheba Yochai and all of Tzadikim of Yisrael's history. I want to start with a story that my son told me today. I saw the story a while back, but he reminded me of it, and it's just a very cute story for Pneumius. Introduction. We haven't been saying too much stories. We've been a little bit deeper than stories, but this is a good story to start the night. There was a man who was married to, unfortunately, a very difficult woman, and she would really make his life very difficult. And he was like wondering, like, what's he supposed to do? But we do know Chazal tell us that the person that has an Isha Ra, so he's muftach that if he won't see Pesach Shel Gehenim. So, but he wants to know the Maisa, like what does he do as far as an attitude over here? So he lived in Tzfas apparently, or somewhere in that neck of the woods in the time of the Arizal. He went to the Arizal, and he asked the Arizal, "What do I do? My wife is making my life miserable." So the Arizal told him, he says, "Let me explain to you what's going on over here. In your previous life, in your previous Gilgal, you were a very bad husband. And your tikkun is to come back to this world and be a very good husband. And a very good husband has to put up with a lot of nisyonos in the marriage in order to prove his worth as a good husband. So Mela is auspicious that when you go home and you work to be the best husband, despite the fact this is very difficult because your wife is really not the nicest person in the world, this is your tikkun. Sagt Yid, my tikkun, he embraces his tikkun. He goes home with a zab peren. He has a skip in his walk, a jump in his step, or some other mixed metaphor, and he comes home and he gives his wife a big smile, and he comes home with a thing of flowers. And she's like wondering, like, what's he so excited about? He's normally so broken coming into the home. And he's can I help out? He cleans up and he makes her a favorite coffee. And this starts going on for like a few days, a week or two, and the wife is like totally confused. Finally, she says to the husband, "What's going on over here? No, I'm so bad to you. I'm so not nice to you. Why are you being so nice to me?" So he says, "I'll tell you the truth. I went to that reason. He told me that this is my ticket for my neshama. So I'm so happy that I could have this tikkun from my neshama. So that's why I'm being so good to you. This is my tikkun." The wife said, "Oh, this is your tikkun. I don't want you to get a tikkun. No. So you know what? From now on, I'm going to be nice to you." And she starts being nice to him. So you shouldn't have a tikkun. So the guy now he has a dilemma, a catastrophe. My wife's being nice to me. I'm not going to get my tikkun. What do I do? He goes running back to the Arizal. He says, Rebbe, I have a huge problem. My wife is being nice to me, and I'm not going to get my tikkun. Dr. Arizal, let me explain to you. He says, the day she decided to be nice to you, that was the day where you reached your tikkun. You massacred everything on that day. Now you don't need a tikkun anymore, so she could be nice to you. So he goes home. And sure enough, he lives happily ever after. That's the end of the story. I just want to have an ha'ara on the story. And sort of like two ha'aras. First of all, did he tell his wife that he had his tikkun already and that her being nice to him would no longer ruin his tikkun? Probably not, right? Because then she'd probably start being not nice to him, right? Unless you're going to say once he reached his tikkun, she had no choice but her heart turned around and she was able to be nice to him without having to work at it too hard in the schlecht way. But assuming she would continue being her old schlecht self, which maybe is not the case, then he would have to sit and have the nicest wife in the world, knowing full well that she's only being nice because she wants him to rot and get at him. You know, so how does I'm just try that to emphasize. How does that feel having someone being so nice to you, but ultimately the reason is because they want you to burn. So I'm going to assume, just to give us a happier ending, the happiest ending, that once he reaches Tikkun and she actually tried being nice for a few weeks, she actually got the hang of it, and realized, hey, this is pleasant, and and she actually started being nice, in a real with good intention. That is a story for a little bit of introduction to Panemius. Life is full of nisyanis, and the nisyanis present themselves in many different ways. They can present themselves in relationships. They can present themselves in parnasa. They can present themselves in health. They can present themselves in just stubbing your toe and wondering, well, how is this pain going to ever go away when it hurts so much, right? All these are nisyanis, and the tachlis ultimately of any limud of Pneumius is to apply the Pneumius that Ravitcher always says, b'derech avoid, right? Realistically, how do I apply this to my day? Right? When we sit and we learn a gematria and a remez and all these things, and a deeper understanding is ultimately, how do I apply this when I don't get what I want in Olam Hazeh? And the ultimate application is recognizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the ultimate Pneumius of Pneumius. And when you recognize that, then that Pneumius actually, it expands itself, permeates to the chitzonius, and all of a sudden your whole life is a life of connection without the frustrations of being disconnected. I have another cute story I heard. Well, maybe remind me that I don't forget to say it at the end. Tonight is the Yartzeit of HaChaim HaKadosh, and the HaChaim HaKadosh is amongst the few people in the history of Klal Yisrael that have this the title HaKadosh universally accepted. The HaChaim is revered by obviously by Sfardim and but everybody. You know what I'm saying? And the chiddush of the HaChaim was that in the Hasidic world, HaChaim was viewed as being Kodesh Kadoshim. And there's different Messiah on the HaChaim's his standing in Hasidus. HaChaim lived around the time of Baal Shem Tov, and it's documented that I believe it's documented. I think the way it was Azay is that the Baal Shem Tov's brother-in-law, Rabbi Gershon Kitover, moved to Eretz Yisrael. He's actually buried in Har Zaysin. They found his matzeva fairly recently, and they have correspondence between him and the Baal Shem Tov. Their letters actually are printed from back then, and the Baal Shem Tov wanted to come to Eretz Yisrael. One of the main reasons Baal Shem Tov wanted to come to Eretz Yisrael was because Baal Shem Tov wanted to meet the HaChaim HaKadosh. Why did Baal Shem Tov want to meet the HaChaim HaKadosh? Because Baal Shem Tov felt it would be a tremendous tikkun in him and the HaChaim HaKadosh coming together in person. The way it's described, I have to, if you open up the Baal Shem Tov Al Tairi, it's a likud of different things Baal Shem Tov, but the way it's described is as follows. Baal Shem Tov said Azeh. He is a nitzutz of the nefesh of Mashiach. That's what Baal Shem Tov held about himself. The other shaykh is the nefesh of Mashiach. And the HaChaim HaKadosh, we know we're comprised of many parts, the nefesh, ruach, neshama, and then you have the neshama neshama or chay yichida, right? So when you have the nara, nefesh, ruach, neshama, that's the whole gamut of a person's existence. So the Baal Shem Tov held he was a nitzutz, or whatever you're going to describe his connection to the neshama of Mashiach. He held he was a chelik hanefesh, which is the lowest level of a person's ruchnius. The HaChaim HaKadosh he held was the ruach of nishmas Mashiach, and he said that if the Baal Shem Tov and the HaChaim would come together, then they'd be able to be mamshich down the neshama of Mashiach. So you have Nefesh Ruach Neshama of Mashiach, and Mela Mashiach will come down be a Tikkun. That's the way it's described in his pursuit of the pursuit of the Baal Shem Tov, the motive of the Baal Shem Tov. The HaChaim told the Baal Shem Tov that when you see me in your cholim, if I say they used to see each other in cholim, if you see me, when you see me in your cholim, do you see my feet, or do you just see me? The Baal Shem Tov's response was that I don't see your feet. Says after HaChaim, if you don't see my feet, does haste that we're not going to get connected, and there's no point if you come to Eretz, you're not going to make it. Don't even bother. The Baal Shem Tov made an attempt to go to Eretz, he didn't make it, and that's the Messiah on the HaChaim end. And the Baal Shem Tov. There's some other Messiahs that the Baal Shem Tov was by Shal Shudis, or maybe it was Malav Malka, when he announced that Kavan Ner Maravi, referring to the HaChaim, said the HaChaim, HaKadosh L'chaim and Atar was just nifter in Yerushalayim, and that's what Kach was the Spara. That's what happened. The HaChaim, he lived most of his life in Chutzart, and he moved to Eretz Yisrael towards the end, for the last proof of his life. And I don't recall, I didn't really review his biography, but like anyone's biography of great people from those times, their nisyonos were great. And they lived lives of literally nisayon after nisayon, building korban, restarting, and this is and the ability that they had to at the same time to write the amount of storm that he wrote, the 10, 20, 30 storm that he wrote, and to be so dovik in learning is always is amazing. It's something that if we have the slightest lack of security in our lives, we can't learn, we can't focus. And here people are being uprooted from their homes and sent across the globe with regularly, and they manage somehow to totally stay dovik and just stay connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the chiddush is the learning. But they would sit and learn and be mechadish and have a frischkeit in the learning. To cover the Yartzeit, I was just looking at the parsha a little bit at the HaChaim. Just interesting, because before we get to the HaChaim, Parshas Balak is a very unique parsha. Right? What's unique about Parshas Balak? Parshas Balak is the only place in the Torah that most of the parsha is dedicated to a whole story that was going on outside of our group of people. Right? Everything that goes on generally involves the subject of the goings on are unzer, right? Adam, Noach. These are our forebears. Isaac, Yaakov, the Shvatim, Moshe, Aaron, Klal Yisrael. All of a sudden, right? Imagine you're filming a presentation, and also the camera pans out to come out a whole parsha from Klal Yisrael to a place far away from Klal Yisrael, right? And on the other side of the midbar, right? We have over here, let's take a peek into the lives of Balak and Bilam and all these people. It's just like a very interesting. It's a very unique that the Torah is sort of like it gives you a view into the lives of people that are just not in chaos, and the whole story goes on, and the entire parsha of Klal Yisrael being one step away from Chas v'Shalom, a klal of Bilam, and the fact that the klal is nefach lebracha. All this goes on. The entire parsha. The whole parsha goes on with Klal Yisrael being blissfully unaware of all the hashkacha that's going on behind them. Right? So it just as far as the sense of hashkacha, it's just like here you have Klal Yisrael is being threatened by annihilation, and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mamish taking the klal being nepach lebracha, and Klal Yisrael is blissfully unaware. What happens with all the blissful unawareness, right? Right when this whole narrative ends, right? So pasuk says, Bilam returns home, but okay, they both leave, they're on their way, and now we turn the camera back to Klal Yisrael. Now it's like chilling, and it really it pictures this as this is our life. Literally, this is our life, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sitting there, and He's caring for every aspect of our life, and we are blissfully unaware that every cell in our body is responding the way it's meant to be. Our brain is firing all the electrical circuits that need to be connected, and there are all our systems. We don't even know the names of the many systems inside of our body that are just constantly turning out, an ability for us to function, to think, to be able to Hashem, and we're blissfully unaware, and we're so blissfully unaware that we literally, what happens to us is what the way that the Parsha takes a turn. Right? All this happens, all the hashgacha, all this tremendous love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Vayeshev Yisrael b'shitim, Vayochel ha'am lisnais al b'nais maya. Klal Yisrael blissfully unaware that the greatest chesed HaKadosh Baruch Hu and hashgacha and everything in the life is so being overseen by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and not only is our clothes not happy clothes being nepach lebracha, and blissfully unaware, just picture today's day and age. A guy sits down after a long day, doesn't know how many car accidents he was spared from, how many illnesses were detected by his quote unquote his immune system, and now he's healthy, right? And he sits down at the end of a long day in front of a who knows what with a who knows what remote control in his hand, and blissfully unaware. Right? So this is like literally, it's like so chilling after the hashgacha that goes on beneath the scenes. And it's so wide open to us, and Klal Yisrael can literally overlook this. They settled in a place called Shittim. Look, Rashi, what's Shittim? Look, Rashi, Shittim is the name of a place. Right? Kach Shema. So the Pshat says before I say what's Rashi saying Kach Shema? Because Rashi is coming to be mefarish the Pshuta Shal Mikra, and the Pshuta Shal Mikra that's the name of the place. It's called Shittim. The Chazal tells there's a Nichtas B'Ruach Shtus, right? That has this in other way Rav came Nichtas B'Ruach Shtus. So Shittim is lashon of Shtus. The HaChaim says the chat, which is very appropriate for this time of year. This time of year that people go to all sorts of random places like Lock Sheldrake, New York, or Dallas, Texas. There are some people we know that just got back from Guatemala for some reason. I know someone that just got back from Uganda, and Zakt HaChaim. What is the siba of people being chayta, people losing their firm commitment and the focus enough that they could end up being in a place where they be going to be ripe for falling into nisyanis. Dr. HaChaim, he says the lashon of Shittim is a lashon of tiyul. He says, right? He says we have by the mon. It says lashon of shata ha'am, right? Rashi ain't shayta lashon tiyul. So he says this is the siba. B'zeh siba sayachal ha'am liznais. Right? People start going out of their comfort, out of their cocoons, we should say, and the places where your homes, where you're protected, and all the garment that you built around yourselves in your homes, hopefully. And people start getting curious and they start traveling and they start going to new places. This is the Pesach for Vayachal Ha'am Liznais. That's like time the Ohr HaChaim. So it says Vayachal Ha'am Liznais al b'nais maya. It says they started the lashon by Yachal, lashon of chilul, lashon of being mechal themselves, right? What is the siba for this? What's the lashon by Yachal Ha'am Liznais al b'nais maya? What's the lashon of el b'nais maya? The chayyim should be Vayachal Ha'am Liznais im b'nais maya. Dr. HaChaim, that they that Yacha Ha'ab Liznais El Benaisma is referring to not just his nus, but ultimately the Benaisma. What they want the Klal Yisrael to do is they want them to be Ayvid Abad Zara. So they force them to be Ayvid Abad Zara to Baal Pa'ar. Yacha Ha'ab Liznais El Benaisma means his nus was El Benaisma to the advice of Benaisma to go be Mishtachaveh to Abad Zara. So the back the HaChaim, we're talking about Baal Pa'ar over here. We all know what Baal Pa'ar is. Right? Baal Pa'ar is Avodah Baal Pa'ar is a nasty Avodah, it's a typical Avodah. And all of a sudden, it sounds like they're doing very typical Avodah. I think all of a sudden they're doing Hishtachavaya, they're doing Zvicha. Right? What's going on over here? That they seem to be doing the wrong avodah. Now the truth is, the halacha is that there is misa for derech avedasai. There are the main avodas of avodah zara, which are misa, which is zricha, ishtachavaya, nisa, chatara, etc. So these are universal avodas. Masha'en kain, right? Parshas of Balak. This is derech avedasai, and Memela, this is also chiddush that a person for derech avedasai, even though it's not this typical bowing and shechting and pouring, right? There's a chiyuv misa. So over here, Klal Yisrael expanded their connection to Baal Pa'ar, and the HaChaim wants to explain what's going on over here. So he says Baal Pa'ar, somehow it was moishich so much. Chazal tell us that it was moishich them that once a person got involved in this avodah of Baal Pa'ar, they were so nimshach acharav that it brought them to do all sorts of avodah connection, despite the fact this is kilo lifnimisher, this is like hidden mitzvah, right? These other avodas. He says after the pshat is that they would eat a lot in order to, if they would eat a lot of food, right? So then they could do the mitzvah mamash also behidden mitzvah. That would be by yoichal ha'am, by ishtach v'lelukeim. But I was just thinking b'chlal, like what's epis Baal Pa'ar? Why is that? This is not HaChaim. This is my own chiddush, and you don't have to say it over. It's just itching in the hair. I didn't really think it through so well, but I was just thinking, what's that? Is Baal Pa'ar? Of all the Avodah Zaras, right? What do they gain by introducing Klal Yisrael to the funniest Avodah Zarah of them all, Baal Pa'ar? And so I was thinking, just say Pasha, then we'll say with a little bit of more of a detail. That what's Baal Pa'ar, right? Baal Pa'ar is a person. What he does is he's mafka his standards totally. Have no standards, right? Kilo, me doing my high level living, which would be, my going to work and doing my job in the Gaisha world. I'm a farmer. I'm planting. I plant. These are high level things. I'm producing. I'm doing things that are responsible. I'm providing to others. Versus things that necessities people have to get involved with, which are their lowest level types of behaviors, right? When you want to confuse people and lower the level of their behavior, so what you do is you tell them, listen, all behavior is the same. There's no difference between going to work and doing something which appears to be positive and good, versus doing something that we know is just a necessity, which is obviously involves quite on the surface. It's obviously very disgusting, right? So Mela, the idea of this avodah zarah is to blur your life, right? Your life has to be, you just blur everything. It's all the same. There's nothing good. There's nothing bad. It's just like an animal. There's no difference in an animal. If it's plowing, you could be plowing and be going to the bathroom at the same time. Right? When it comes to an animal, there's no difference. Right? It's doing this and that at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. That's what they're trying to bring people down to, that majeg. Once you bring a person that majeg, that there's no such thing as high level, low level behavior. It's just you just do. Male, this opens up the Pesach to the lowest level behavior. But just say one nikud just occurred to me. The Gemara tells us that ultimately the greatest way to for a person to rise above the nisayin of znus is with the Gemara in Meseches Eruvin, right? Gemara Meseches Eruvin says, right? Isha is a chemis malei tzaya, opia malei adam, right? Right? As I state that the way that when a person puts his head on straight and he sees what it means to run after a person's nus, which is not something he has a shyness to, has to realize he's running after a chemis malei tzaya, right? Memela, what's Baalpar do? Baalpar tries to undo that outlook. Right, you take this whole Indian of Cheves Malay and you bring it up and you glorify it as if this is a tremendous avodah. And male, this undoes the greatest tick and the greatest outlook of setting people straight. That's a little bit on the Parsha, a little bit of HaChaim. I just held up with a cute story. Your job is going to be to come up with a initial for this story. Okay, so this is just to keep when someone showed this to me, it was like it just really had a good laugh from it, and I said, "Wow, this is a great story for something. I'm not sure what." So this is going to be, let's try to figure out what we can make, what neutral we could bring out. There was a war. We'll say the war was between the French and the Russians, and the way it was a couple hundred years ago in wartime, that people were gentlemen. Yeah, we're trying to kill each other for whatever reason it is, but we're human beings are gentlemen. And there were, if you ever see the pictures of the battles, they would line up at the battlefield, right? And the generals would hold up the sword, they pulled out the sword, okay, time to fight. It was like a football game, right? You had an organized war. And it wasn't like nowadays you have a plane, you just try to blow everybody up before they even realize it. It was, everyone sort of had to come with the horses up. So you're going to come with the horses and you're going to schlep your cannons, whatever it is. And things were like so made the best man win type of idea. So, but by one of these wars, they decided to, they're going to take a break. They were fighting for a few days. They need to regroup and people needed to eat and whatever, freshen up. They're taking a half stick in the war for X amount of time. So everyone goes back to the camps. They prepare food, and there was one guy who had a tremendous appetite, a big gushim guy, and he's preparing himself the biggest feast. And he's about to sit down and eat this. It took him longer for everyone else to prepare himself. And all of a sudden, the trumpets are blaring, the war is back on. He's not going to get a chance to eat. What does he do? He grabs a big pot of soup with all the soup and the hot. What do you call it? The goulash and everything, and he ties it to the back of his horse. Right as he starts riding off into the horse. The horse hits a bump, and all of a sudden, some of the soup comes flying out of the pot and lands in the back of the horse. The horse goes nuts. Right, it's getting burnt from this hot soup. Starts running, and the more it runs, tries to shake this thing off its back, the more it's spilling. And the more it spills, the more it's getting burnt. The more it's getting burnt, it's going wild. It's going 90 miles an hour right in the direction of the enemy soldiers. The guy can't stop his horse for anything. And so what does he do? He pulls out a sword and he starts swinging it at all the enemy soldiers, and they can't stop his horse. His horse is on fire. And for the next half hour, he slaughters 250 of the enemy soldiers, and they all run for this crazy guy on this crazy horse, and his army wins the battle. So when they come to deciding to give him a big medal for being such a brave hero, so he tells them, he says, "Listen, I'm not a brave guy. I would have never done this in a million years. But as he told him, I was preparing my meal. I put the soup in the back, and this is what happened." So he said, "You're not a hero. You're a fresser, right?" And they took away his medal. Okay, I don't need to end up taking away the medal, and you could even stop it before admitting that. That was a child, I'm saying, if you end up in such a situation, right? He said, Hashem sent me in this situation. Okay, so this hashkacha, and nothing I ever do is really me, right? It's all hashkacha. Hashem put me in a situation where I was sort of forced to kill 250 soldiers and help my army. But just the idea of this mashal of really, I was really like the niche of the more that I was thinking about is sometimes the harder you try to rectify a bad situation, the worse it gets. You know what I'm saying? And and if you just sit back and just like, okay, make a cheshbon, let's approach this with a little more rationally, and just not being so reactive that you won't be that horse, running randomly into enemy territory. Anyway, it's just a cute Misa, and you guys will have a chance to maybe think of some sort of nimshal in your own way. Anyway, we should be talking to be zeichet to be zeichet to gewaltige madrigas, the madrigas that HaChaim brought down to this world. They should be all be zeichet to a wonderful Shabbos, and they should have a beautiful time. We'll talk about maybe about 3 weeks next week.